When I was about 12, my parents sent me to my grandmother's village every summer, a quiet, God-forgotten place, surrounded by forests and fields, with scattered houses and long, empty streets. I loved coming here. There was a certain magic to it. The smell of hay, my grandmother's old house, and the local kids, with whom we'd form a gang and roam the area. That year, everything was as usual. Days passed peacefully. Fishing by the river, mushroom hunting in the woods, hide-and-seek in abandoned attics. But one evening, as the sun was already beginning to set, one of my friends, Seryoga, suggested we go to the unfinished house on the edge of the village. That gray skeleton in the middle of the field stood out like a broken tooth, surrounded by a rusted fence. They said construction had stopped because the workers found something in the ground. Some joked it was treasure. Others said bones. But we were kids. We were more interested in exploring the place. "Come on, let's check it out," Seryoga encouraged us. They say someone lit a fire there at night. There were 5 of us. Soon, we squeezed through the fence, made our way through the tall weeds, and reached the huge gray structure. It stared out with empty window frames, and inside there was silence. I don't remember who heard the sound first, but we all froze. From deep inside the building came a whisper, unclear words, repeating again and again, like a prayer. "What's that?" Pashka whispered, but no one answered him. Then, just ahead, in one of the rooms, a shadow flickered. We looked at each other. Stupid curiosity overpowered fear, and we crept closer. When we peeked inside, I felt my heart stop. There, in the middle of the empty room, stood a man, dressed in a long black robe. His face was hidden by a hood, and he was speaking in some strange language. At his feet lay a person, tied hand and foot. In the candlelight, I saw the man raise his hand, and in it, a knife gleamed. "Is this a joke?" someone whispered, but then a stifled gasp sounded. I turned around. It was Caustic. He couldn't take it. Whether from fear or by accident, the sound was loud enough to break the silence. The man froze, then suddenly turned around. We couldn't see his face, but the dark eyes under the hood seemed to burn right through us. He slowly raised his hand and pointed directly at Caustic. "Run!" someone yelled, and we took off like mad. We ran, not watching our steps, stumbling through tall grass and scraping against the sharp edges of the rusted fence. My heart was pounding so hard, it felt like it would burst out of my chest. I looked back only once, and that was my mistake. The dark figure stood in the window frame, motionless, like a statue, but I could swear it was looking right at me. When we got back to the village, we scattered to our homes, telling no one. Everyone was silent, probably afraid the adults would punish us for sneaking onto the construction site. But that wasn't on my mind. That night, I tossed and turned in bed, replaying the scene. The dark silhouette, the glint of the knife, and the bound man who never made a sound. The next morning, I met Seryoga. He looked worried. "Caustic!" he started, but never finished. I just nodded. Caustic was nowhere to be found. His parents said he wasn't feeling well and stayed home. But a few days passed, and the news spread through the whole village. Caustic had died. The doctors couldn't find a cause of death. They just found him in bed in the morning. Cold. "Do you think it was because of him?" Seryoga asked me when we met behind the house. "Who was that guy? You saw how he pointed at Caustic." I didn't know what to say. Yes, I saw it. And with each passing minute, I was more and more convinced it wasn't a coincidence. That same night, I decided to tell my grandmother everything. She listened silently, without interrupting. When I finished, her face was pale, and I saw terror in her eyes. "Pack your things," was all she said, rising from the table. "But Grandma—" "Quiet. You're never going back to that village." She took me to the city to my parents the very next day. The ride was silent. I tried to question her, but Grandma just shook her head and kept repeating, "Don't get involved in this, Sashka. Forget it." Since then, I never went back to the village. Grandma would visit us sometimes in the city, but she never answered my questions. The only thing she ever said once, "Some things are better left alone." Many years have passed, but I still haven't forgotten that night. The image of the man in black, the glint of the knife, and the way he pointed at Caustic. To this day, it haunts my dreams. Sometimes I think I hear his voice, that same whisper in a strange language, coming from the darkness. Recently, while cleaning my parents' house, I came across an old photo album. Among the pictures of Grandma's village, I noticed a photo from some celebration. People were standing around a big bonfire, and I recognized the place right away. It was that same construction site, only before it was abandoned. But what caught my attention was someone else. In the background stood a man in a black cloak, just like the one I saw back then. The face wasn't visible, but the eyes, those same bottomless eyes, as if staring straight into your soul. I showed the photo to Mom. "Who's this?" I asked, pointing at the figure. She frowned and looked closely. "That's, I don't remember. Maybe one of the neighbors. Ask Grandma if you're curious." But Grandma was already too old, and to my questions, she only shook her head, breaking into a cough. There was something in her eyes I couldn't understand. Fear, guilt. Later, I made a desperate decision. Took a vacation, got in the car, and drove to that same village. The place where I spent my childhood now looked deserted. A few houses had collapsed. Others stood abandoned. Almost no people around. I reached that construction site. Now, it was just a ruined shell overgrown with moss. But as I approached, I felt someone watching me. That same heavy, icy gaze. I went into the room where it all happened. Everything was the same. Same walls, same shadows. On the floor, I found strange symbols scratched into the concrete. It looked like a circle with odd patterns. Suddenly, footsteps came from around the corner. My heart started pounding. I turned around, but there was no one there. "What do you want?" I shouted, not even knowing who I was calling. The only answer was silence. Since then, I never returned to that village again. Sometimes I feel that the man, if he was even a man, left something inside me, a piece of himself. And with each passing year, I think more and more that Caustic's death wasn't an accident. He was pointed at. And what if now? It's my turn.